Hello and welcome to the Defining Your Niche podcast, where we dive into alternative asset classes in commercial real estate, specifically self-storage and small bay flex. I'm your host, Thaddeus Campbell. Super excited today. Somebody that has sparked my interest. I've been following him on LinkedIn, friends with a couple of my partners as well. First of all, I want to thank him, Alexei Chernobylsky, the principal of Centrio Capital Partners, for coming on and joining us. Alexei, thanks for spending a half hour with me.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. You did a great job on the last name, by the way.
I appreciate
that. Top 10%.
I love it. When your first name's Thaddeus and it gets massacred all the time, you take a little bit of extra interest in making sure that you pronounce people's names at least half decently. I'll take top 10%. That's an A. I'll take that all day, every day. So I always start the podcast off the same. You specifically with what you do, and we'll dive into exactly what Centrio Capital Partners does, because quite frankly, I think it's absolutely genius, and we'll explain a little bit more why I think that through the half hour. But commercial real estate is listen, it's not for everybody by any stretch of the imagination, and I love to pick people's brains on how they got to the place they're at in their career and how they're doing what they're doing. What was the journey that Alexei took to get to today?
Yeah, sure. I guess high level, and obviously happy to elaborate. Went to undergrad, went to work at a bunch of different investment shops. Actually, none that were really so real estate focused. And then landed at a really big shop called Store Capital, which was a public REIT. Now, since I left, they're no longer public. But I did really well there and really enjoyed the experience. Happy to talk through it. But by the time I left, I ran a 20-person team that underwrote any deal that came in. Just to give you a sense of the number of deals, I would say probably on average of 10 to 20 a week. Like it was very busy.
Yep.
And we bought roughly 1 to 2 billion a year, which that's all the stuff that we actually transacted on. But obviously, we underwrote a lot more.
You're looking at 100 billion
no
to buy 1 to 2 billion.
Right, which was not, to be clear, which was not all with me, meaning there's like salespeople that would only submit things that they think they could have gotten a commission on, right? Then it comes into the underwriting funnel, which is what I managed. And then anytime we closed an asset, that also came to my team. That was my second team, the portfolio management. And by the time I left, it was like close, I think, 2,950 properties, give or take, all around the U.S.
Small portfolio.
And the gross book value, I think, was 10.7 billion, give or take.
Just a small deal, nothing too serious. I love it. So
yeah. What's 10 billion among friends?
It's stunning to me still. I've only been in commercial real estate for a little less than 5 years now, and just the numbers that you throw around, they're staggering. If you don't understand that, like when you're in it, it doesn't seem so strange. But when you're coming from a different background, the numbers can be incredibly daunting. Talk to me through that transition now, no longer working for a big firm. You're on your own, and you started Centrio Capital Partners a few years ago. First of all, tell me what you're doing and explain it to the people that are watching, and we'll dig from there. But I want you to explain exactly what it is and what you've been doing.
I guess I'll just start with a joke. You're assuming that I know what I'm doing.
I love it.
Like, look, the way maybe I'll start with the way that Centrio started. I left and I was used to a very institutional world. After a few consulting engagements and experiences, I realized that, there's this like GPLP universe that exists. I literally had no idea that it existed before. I mean, like literally 3 years ago. Because I was used to like public type of investments, public REITs, yep. Institutional level funds, right? I just didn't live in this world at all.
Yep.
But slowly I realized, like, I have some friends in this space. I spoke to some people, and started learning about it. And I was just realized, like, holy smokes, like, what's happening here? There's like billions being deployed by people that are not from this industry. And then I started looking at, under the hood on some of these decks and understanding what's happening. And the reality was, it's like a little bit of the Wild West, right? Like there's definitely some really great opportunities. There's also some really sketchy opportunities. And the question was, could I sort of be not necessarily the person, but a person that could bridge the gap between GPs and LPs and help with the transparency that in my opinion doesn't exist today. And that's what I set out to do. So that was, I guess, roughly 2 years ago. I started advising LPs on existing investments that they have, future investments that they're looking at. I started writing weekly on topics at lplessons.co, which is now like roughly at 8,500
Nice.
subscribers. And then most recently, like 2 months ago, I launched like, I guess you can call it like a software product, software-esque, which is gplpmatch.com, which basically tries to solve a very simple problem. Like, if I'm a guy and I have a few $1,000,000 to invest and I want to invest in self-storage and it has to be in Texas and I want an 80% pref, it shouldn't be that hard to find it. There's people that want it, and it shouldn't be that hard to be notified when it occurs. And so that's what I set out to build. I'm like, I guess 73, I think, deals in terms of sending stuff in the past 2 months. About 1,400 LPs on the platform. Still feels very early. Still stressed out. You can ask any questions.
I listen, I'm going to tell you right off. When I heard about what you're doing with the GPLP match, I think it's genius. Look, you just pointed it out yourself, right? You come from that big institutional world where they're not going out and getting accredited investors to fund their deals at $100,000 at a time, right? They're going and getting tranches of money, hundreds of millions of dollars at a time in certain instances. So they don't go through that. What we and our group, Safe Storage Investors and especially our brand Flex Park partners, where we're building ground up development, we're going to go get LPs. We're going to go get accredited investors and some friends and family money to fund the equity we need for the project. But the reality of it is we're a small shop. We may have 2-3 projects in a year that we're going to raise LP money on. So we aren't putting a constant stream of deals in front of our investors. And quite frankly, we don't want our investors to give us 100% of the funds they're looking to deploy in one deal. That's not treating our investors correctly, right? So we don't want to do that. If you only got $1 million to invest, I don't want you to put that whole $1 million in one deal. Your risk is way too big. But I can't provide enough deals to use up your $1 million in one space. So for you and this idea of bringing these deals into one place, I thought it was absolutely genius. I'll start out with that. Just really, really smart idea.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if it works. It's free to both sides of the network. Like GPs can submit for free, and pretty crazy amounts of money have traded already that I've been able to track, and it's all free. And it's funny. Like one of my earlier, I think like deal number 3, was sent out, and the guy got 3 leads. One of them was an allocator, and the allocator said like, "I'll take down this whole deal, but you have to do like a 90-10 split. Like pretty aggressive terms, but you get the whole check." And the guy calls me and he's like, I wasn't expecting that, and I was like, well. So just say no. But like, what a great relationship, right? Yeah. Meaning, you can say no, you can negotiate, but on your next deal, maybe you have a JV partner and you don't have to raise $100,000 checks. Right?
Listen, for people who don't understand, as a GP, like for our project, we're going to end up raising about $3 million. And again, we don't want anyone giving us a huge percentage of their allocatable funds. We can be looking at 30, 40, 50 different people we're getting to invest in that one deal. When you put a platform together where someone gets one deal, and again, you may not want to do a 90-10 split to the LP, but still to just have that platform where you have access to those kind of relationships is super powerful.
Yeah, I think the concept is pretty simple. Like, I strongly believe that there are many good GPs out there and good deals. I know for a fact, just based on advising people, LPs have a really hard time finding deal flow, which, I think, I don't know how to describe this, but there's like this notion that, deals just fall from skies and like, you can like, just Google, your next GP. And it's just like totally false. Like I have a conversation probably every week. I had one like 2 days ago. Like, hey, I'm selling a business. I'm going to have 9 million liquid. Like, what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
And the answers are always bad.
Yeah.
They're terrible. Like we're in like we're in 2025, I think. Like the answer like, oh yeah, like you can Google like GP syndicator, Boston, multifamily. Like, is that gonna help? I don't think so. Like you can ask your buddy at the country club who they invest in. Chances are they have no idea what they're doing either, so I'm not sure that's so helpful. So it's just like it's just an extremely inefficient space, and I figured, I don't know, like if you have some millions lying around and you're trying to allocate it, like what could be better than telling me what you want to see, and I only reach out to you if I see something that matches it.
You said, tell me again the number of deals you've already had go into this from the GP side of it in a matter of 2 months.
1 second, I don't want to lie. I'll tell you the exact number.
I love it. Take your time.
71. I think I said 73 earlier. Apologies. 71 deals sent.
You were in the margin of error.
Since January 21st.
That's phenomenal.
January 21st.
And again, like, the biggest developers I know in the self-storage space might do 5-6 deals in a year. Right, so to have the access to 71 different deals is in 2 months is mind blowing to me, because again, we're dealing with GPs that typically are on the smaller side if they're still doing LP syndication deals. So I think that's fantastic. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the structure of the platform, and GPs are submitting deals to you. Is this purely a place where LPs can go and vet deals on their own? Are you doing any vetting of the deals before you make them active on the platform? How does that process work?
Great question. So, I mean, the GPs register. It takes, I don't know, somewhere between 30 to 60 seconds to register, depending on how fast you type. Then you go to submit. Submission, assuming you know what you're doing, should take less than 5 minutes. It's very simple questions like what's the pref, what's the split, what's the ag fee, what's the address. I don't know. Like if you can't answer that, I don't know. I'm sorry.
I hope so.
Like very basic things. And once they submit, I mean, I'll just give you an example. Someone submitted a deal this morning. I glanced at it quickly. What I do is to make sure that it's accurate, meaning it's not due diligence. My job is to just make sure that on behalf of the GP and the LPs on the platform, like the platform would suck if like the inputs are like incorrect, right? So for example, if you put that your pref is 9, but your deck says it's 7, I try to catch those things.
Yep.
Or for example, if you said that, it's been a year since your first principal investment, but you've had 10 round trip deals, I probably will reach out to you and be like, hey, like maybe you misinterpreted the question. Either the principal investment is wrong or the 10 is wrong. One of them is wrong. So again, my job is accuracy on the form. And then I get it out. And the goal, which is hopefully abundantly clear, is that all the diligence falls on the LP.
Got it. Yeah, and listen, makes perfect sense. You can't underwrite everything, and you mentioned this from when you were with stores that 71 deals in 2 months, a single underwriter is not going to be able to go through each of those themselves. I will follow up with the question because you mentioned that you're advising LPs prior to even starting Centro, starting the website GPLP Match. What are the things you suggest to LPs when they're looking at a deal that a GP is presenting?
Like in terms of things to look out for?
100%. And take that any direction you want and as deep as you want.
Well, how much time do we have?
We've got plenty. We've got 15 minutes left.
We've got 10 minutes.
More than welcome.
No, I'm kidding.
A little longer to get really good answers.
No, I'm kidding. Look, I mean, it's hard to answer this on one foot. I have somewhere between 50 and 80 articles on these topics.
Love it.
Um,
And we'll put a
at a
scroll there
high
so people can
level,
access for sure. We'll put
yeah,
that
yeah,
down.
just at a high level, I would recommend people to look at top 15 syndication mistakes, which is where I basically retroactively looked at a bunch of deals that went bad
Mm-hmm.
and try to find common denominators. Um, the biggest thing, to be honest, is like just the misconception that the property is where the focus should be. I wrote 3 pillars of LP investing, which is sort of like it's my methodology of thinking about LP investments, and there's 3 pillars. The last of which is the property. And the first of which is the execution pillar, which is like, who are you investing in? Do you trust them? Do they have a good track record? Do you trust that track record, et cetera, right? The second of which is alignment. In other words, what is the alignment of interests like between you, the LP, and the GP?
Mm-hmm.
And that has 3 components. It's fee related, co-invest, and the waterfall, right? So like depending on how those 3 things are structured, either you're sort of off balance when you walk into this deal, and it can only get worse potentially
Yep.
if things go downside, or you're like in a good place, and even if things turn south, there's still enough vested interest to sort of course correct.
I love that, and you because you mentioned something before, which is that you know you mentioned somebody selling a business for $9 million. Well, if their business is not commercial real estate, they don't really have any grounding in necessarily what it is that they're then going to take that money and invest it into if they're going to
Right.
become an LP on a GP. So to have that, your experience to be able to guide people into where they're going and what to look for is prices. Because look, you're running a business selling widgets. How do you know that the property's not a slam dunk home run, and if it's in the hands of the wrong operator, right? As you mentioned.
Yep. Precisely. Yeah. I mean, I hopefully that's why I exist.
Give people some credibility there. The next question I want to ask you, the GPs that are putting their deals into your pipeline, any vetting going on from your side of it as far as if their track record does have some negatives in there that you'd want to be able to share with LPs? Or are you not going into that part of it at all?
It's a great discussion. I'm happy to have it. The short answer is no, it's not there. But many people would say, well, how can you not have it there? Like, how can you not have a question that says something along the lines of, are you currently in litigation? Have you issued a capital call on a deal? Do you have any deals that have lost money, right? And I think the answer to that is very intricate because I mean, I don't know, like people might not like this, but I fundamentally believe that part of this business, I mean, like part of the investments business is sometimes you lose money, right? So what I do not have an issue with a GP that lost money. Like at some point, some investment will probably not work out. What I have an issue with is people not being transparent about those facts,
Yeah.
which happens all the time. Like that could be another 30 minutes,
Yeah.
right? But like, and so I've made a decision not to include those questions because I think, I mean, personally, I have seen GPs with like a 30-year track record that will answer, hey, yeah, like I have had a bad investment. And I think LPs, incorrectly might assume, oh, like this guy lost money, I should go with the guy that hasn't lost money. But the guy that hasn't lost money just hasn't lost money yet.
Right. I think it's
You know?
fascinating that you say that. Two people that have been guests on the podcast recently, high level storage developers, Jonah Hall, who's the principal president at Cedar Creek Capital, partners with AJ Osborne, a very well known name in the self storage space, and Jeremiah Boucher, who's the largest private owner of storage in New England, Patriot Holdings. Both said on the podcast that don't bet on somebody who is a developer that hasn't lost. If they don't have a loss on their track record that they're willing to tell you about, that they're willing to fess up to and willing to say, hey, what went wrong here? because that's how you learn. That's how you avoid those future mistakes. That's how you care more about being successful, and when you haven't felt that sting of loss. So I could not agree with you more that you know having somebody who has an L on their tally doesn't necessarily mean that it's not the right jockey to bet on the next development. In fact, quite the opposite, because you learn when you make
Right.
mistakes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's like a very intricate topic that unfortunately gets like I think overly simplified. I guess it's just
Yeah,
like
I think
I
you
think
you
I think by the way, I mean I think LP investments in general get oversimplified. People just want something simple, and it's just not simple.
right.
Like people call me all the time, and they're like, "Hey, like I want to just invest some money. Like, where should I put it?" And I don't do that because I'm not like a IRA, so I can't tell people where to put their money. But my answer is just like you might be looking in the wrong place, because like it's very likely that you might have to look at 10 deals, 20 deals to find one that you like. Oh, and how do you figure out what you like? You have to learn what you like. How do you figure out what you like and how to learn? You have to look at a lot of it. I mean, it's a time consuming thing. Investments are not simple. So if you don't have a background in them, like just I don't know, like people will hate me for saying this, but like go buy a REIT.
Right. I think you're one
It
thousand
ha-
percent right. Right. There's no 20% IRR, you know, two extra money in 5 years deal that's going to be simple. Right. That's not it. Like you don't see those types of returns without A, taking some significant risk, but B, without it being a complex deal. Because if it wasn't a complex deal, if it didn't have elements of risk, it wouldn't have those type of potential returns in it over the long haul, right? Storage over the last 40 plus years, ground up developments, the IRRs in the 30s historically. Now that's
Yep.
starting to drop now over time, and it's coming a little more into the 20s. But shoot, if you can tell me I can get a 20% return on my money yearly over 5 years, what's the stock market historically? 8% if you don't take out fees at all. What's a T-bill at
Yeah.
its highest? We just saw it at 5%. You want super simplicity and you want safe, go buy it. I think they're around 4% today. Go buy a T-bill and get 4%, right? So this idea that it should be simple is maybe not something we should think. Like, there is risk. You do have a potential to lose money, and the question becomes how much research and how much work are you willing to do to educate yourself on those deals.
Correct. And I would also just add quickly, people like to say that LP investments are passive, and I would just say they are certainly not as passive as you would think once you invest,
Right.
right? Because I think there's some active monitoring. I actually have literally an article called that. Passive investments require active monitoring, I think.
Yep.
Um, but before you invest, oh, forget about it. It's definitely not passive.
No.
It's everything but passive.
Yeah.
Like you're looking at 20 deals to hopefully find one.
Yep.
And if you're not, then I would just say put the pencils down.
Yeah.
I don't know, just my opinion.
I listen. I go back to when you were working for institutional capital, and you were underwriting. You were getting deals vetted by salespeople first, right? So they were filtering out certain
Yeah,
deals that
yeah.
were sent to you. And then how many of those, what percentage of those did you actually follow through and execute on as an acquisition? It wasn't 50% by any stretch.
No, I mean you're probably looking at like 5%
One out of
that we
20.
went like under contract on.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's a little hard to define. It's also different, right? Because you have to remember, like, if you're a public REIT, people who are reaching out to you know exactly what you do.
Right.
You're public, and like we had, I think, 3 billion on a revolver. Like we could literally like issue a check to anyone any day of the week for basically any amount.
Yeah.
And we didn't need like debt contingencies. It was just like a different world.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not raising money from people, right? So we just like had more deals than we could like even underwrite at some point. But like that's why my team was so busy, right? But with an LP, I want to make a small distinction. Actually, I think it's a big distinction. Deal flow that comes to a real estate investment trust should not be compared to deal flow that comes to a random LP.
Mm-hmm.
right? Meaning the quality of those deals are inherently different because you have suspicion of what the other person will ask and think when they see the deal come across, right? And I think that matters.
I guess that even goes further to the point I was trying to make, which is that because at the REIT, you're going to get deals sent to you because people know exactly what you're looking for that kind of fit your profile, and you're still only buying 5% of them. As an LP,
Yep.
it's incumbent on you to really take the time to be super specific about what you want and what your parameters are, which goes to your point earlier, which I love about GPLP Match, is that there's filters in there that somebody can literally lay out exactly what they want and only see that, which I think is brilliant.
Right. Yeah, I jokingly I refer to myself as the email guy. Like, you tell me when to send you an email, and I won't send you an email otherwise. Right? Like, if you only want to see self storage deals in Indiana within a pref of 7% and a co-invest of 10%, and the building has to be from 2000 or newer, that's the only time I'm going to send you an email.
Love
Like,
it.
it's literally that simple.
Oh, I love it. So I want to ask a question. I meant to ask you this earlier. How did you come up with this idea? Like, where did this come from? The light bulb that said, "Hey, GPLP match." Because I keep repeating it, but I'm blown away by the simplicity, but the value.
I mean, I've been wanting to build it for like a year, but I was just scared of like a bunch of different things. It's complicated because like, I think the biggest thing that made me nervous is like, oh, maybe if I create something like this, an LP might invest in something and it might not work out, and they're gonna end up saying it was because of me, even though I have like 20 different disclosures about do your own due diligence, and like that just made me nervous. Like I don't
Of
want to be the
course.
conduit of like problems, right? But at some point, I realized that I think uh, the majority of the vast majority, I hope people like really read what I tell them, like many times, and remind them of, and they will use the platform in a way that's conducive to them, um, and hopefully they'll make good investments and they'll get value out of it. And I think more than that, I spoke to so many LPs that I realized that there's like a problem,
Yeah.
you know. Again, it's just like I speak to GPs and they're like, I need LP money. Like, you don't understand. This deal is really, really good.
Yep.
And sometimes they'll send me the deal. I'll look at it. And I'm like, this is actually really interesting.
Yep.
Right. And they're like, can you help me raise money? And I can't because I'm not a broker dealer.
Yep.
Right. So I can't. Then I hang up the phone and an LP calls me. Hey, I'm selling a business, 9 million liquid. Like, where do I find good deals?
Where do I put it? Yep.
And I'm like, well, I don't know. I can't like recommend GPs. It's complicated, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, fine. Like, I just want self storage in Mississippi with this and this. And I'm like, dude, like, you think I have like some sort of like table in my head that I can filter, like, and tell you which one it is? And the answer is like, I probably should. And that's what this is.
Oh, I absolutely love it. Alexi, listen, I always try to honor the 30 minutes. Thank you so much for spending some time. I want you to
For
share
sure.
with us if somebody wants to get in touch with you, if they want to learn, if they want to access. I know you've written a ton of articles. What's the easiest way for somebody to access the knowledge of Alexi Chernobelsky? I just did that for fun. I had to say it one more time.
Yeah, you did a good job. Still top 10%. So, in terms of the blog, we are at Write Weekly. That's lplessons.co. In terms of getting on the GPLP match system, which is totally free and it takes like 30 seconds to sign up, that's gplpmatch.com. In terms of reaching out to me, it's my first name, ALEKSEY at centriocapital.com. And like I'm pretty public on LinkedIn and Twitter. I check my DMs every day. So.
I was gonna say that this guy's all over LinkedIn and absolutely worthy of a follow. Listen, I'm going to say one more time. I think what you're doing is brilliant. As somebody who's on the GP side of it and understands the struggle of getting in front of LPs and understands the struggle of like when we talk to big debt brokers, they want pipeline. They want, like, big money wants pipeline. And so for you to have that pipeline
Yep.
in one place, amazing idea. I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. I'm cheering for you. I think it's a fantastic idea. I'm like you. I'm a raw capitalist. So listen, you're gonna lose money. Then you got to take responsibility for it. But I'm gonna give you that platform to go and vet those deals. I think it's absolutely fantastic. He's Alexei Chernobelsky. I'm Thaddeus Campbell. That's it for this week's episode of the Defining Your Niche podcast. Thanks as always to my friends at Prop Rise who've been such strong supporters of the show. He's looking for GPs with deals. He's looking for LPs that are looking for deals themselves. Reach out to him if you're interested. We're always looking for anything to do with small bay flex or self-storage. Any deals you have, send them my way. We thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next week.